Mr. Obama has been talking about the use of chemical weapons at a media briefing he had after a chat with the Jordanian King, King Abdullah, at the White House.
In many ways, a line's been crossed when we see tens of thousands of innocent people being killed by a regime. Right? But the use of chemical weapons and the dangers that poses to the international community, to neighbors of Syria, the potential for chemical weapons to get into the hands of terrorists, all of those things add increased urgency to what is already a significant security problem and humanitarian problem in the region.
Well, Al Jazeera correspondent Sue Turton has met one of the doctors who treated some of the victims of that attack on April the 13th. Joining me now from Gaziantep, which is in southeastern Turkey. What did he tell you, Sue?
Well, David, he explained to me just what he had seen in the hospital where he was treating some of the victims of that attack in mid-April. His name is Dr Niazi Habash, and he goes in and out of Syria into Allepo all of the time. And he says basically a family was asleep in their house in the Sheikh Maksud area, the Kurdish area of northwest Aleppo, when they were woken up by some sort of shelling, according to the father. They were rushed to hospital, which is a good hour and a half away from where they live. Unfortunately, the two children of that family, two very young boys, 4 months old and 18 months old, already died from these symptoms. The mother was treated when they got to hospital. She also died, but the father survived. But it ended up being quite an enormous task to treat all the people involved, because there are also the rescuers who pulled the people from their house, and the medical staff who had treated them also started displaying the same symptoms. And the doctor described a foaming at the mouth, of pupils dilated, of difficulty breathing. And I asked him really, what did he think these symptoms were? And he said, well, if this had been a farmer and during the day, then they could have considered something like insecticide. But because they were asleep in their own house, the father was a car mechanic, these sort of symptoms immediately made him think that this was some sort of chemical attack. And I asked him how sure he could be, and this is what he said.
Okay, I am as a doctor when I show a group of persons has been affected as same symptoms, as same signs, without any injuries, without any bones, any broken legs, any cuts, any trace of guns, so that I must think about the use of chemical gases. This make me make impression of there are use of chemical weapons.
So there he is, Sue, saying, look, it has to have been some kind of chemical, some kind of gas, but the White House says it now needs proof. Does this doctor believe that this can be proven?
Well, that's the problem. He has become a bit of an expert in this particular area, because they actually had a workshop here for the doctors who go into Syria earlier this month to talk to them about what the signs are and how to prove it. And he says if it was something like sarin, which has been mentioned a lot in the last couple of days, then really you have to capture the clothing, if it goes into the clothing, and also you have to take blood and hair and urine samples immediately. Now, it took this family so long to get to the hospital, but by the time they arrived, the doctor said all of those traces will probably have dissipated. So he said he did take all those samples, and he has passed them on to an American laboratory. He sent them through a contact to this American laboratory. He hasn't yet heard back as to whether they found any traces, but he's very skeptical that amount of time from when this first happened, unless something's bagged immediately and taken immediately and then contained, he really doesn't think that those traces could still exist. So all this talk that there could be some sort of proof, some sort of sign really to show the Americans that this red line has been crossed, he is really not sure that this is going to come from this one attack. He just doesn't think it's possible to prove from these samples.
Well, we thank you very much indeed, Sue Turton there in southeastern Turkey.